Several of the followers of our channel are enjoying our 1970s and 80s vintage boxing podcasts. But this is not a solo request. Although our good friend Andrew Lippert mentioned this in response to the Aaron Pryor one we did. We've had a request for this a couple of weeks ago, but I wanted to get around to it over the Labor Day weekend Canada States, because obviously a lot of big boxing fans have been talking about the boxing that's been showing on primetime in the States in recent months. So today we're going to be talking about one of the most tragic incidents in world boxing history, where a fight that was supposed to be a celebration of the great Korean battlers of the 1980s turned to a tragic event and changed boxing forever. And a lot of people say for the better. It's too bad this person had to die to make those changes in place. Now, Kim-Duk Koo, born Lee Deok-gu in South Korea, Gwosan County, Gangwon, South Korea, was a South Korean boxer who died after fighting in a world title match against Ray Boom Boom Mancini, one of the most popular fighters of his era. His death sparked reforms aimed at better protecting the health of fighters, including reducing the number of rounds in championship bouts from 15 to 12. Now, this fight occurred in Paradise, Nevada, late November 1982, where the lower weights, like I mentioned, were getting more and more attention. People were kind of tiring of the heavyweights and putting more and more attention on bantam, feather, lightweight, junior welterweight, welterweight, light middleweight, and super middleweight. Now, again, Kim was born in Gangwon Province, 100 miles east of Seoul. He was the youngest of 5 children. Ended up being one of the better lightweights to ever come from Korea because of his tenacity. He came from rough beginnings, as his father died when he was 2, and his mother married 3 more times. Kim grew up on the poor side of the ledger. He worked odd jobs such as a shoe shining boy and a tour guide to pay for his education before getting in boxing full-time in 1976. Now, after compiling a 29-4 amateur record, he turned pro in 1978. In February 82, he won the prestigious Orient and Pacific Boxing Federation lightweight title and became the WBA's #1 contender, or what is called the Bob Arum division. He carried a 17-1-1 professional record in a Mancini fight and had won 8 bouts by KO before flying to Las Vegas as the world's, again, WBA #1 challenger to world lightweight champion Mancini. However, he had fought outside of South Korea only once, in the Philippines. It was the first time ever fighting in North America. So we didn't know much about him, but according to Ring Magazine, he was, again, highly regarded amongst the South Korean and Asiatic press. Now, he was likely regarded, though, by the U.S. boxing establishment, but not by Ray Mancini, who believed the fight would be a war. Kim struggled to lose weight in the days prior to the bout so they could weigh in under the lightweight 135-pound limit. Now, before the battle, Kim was quoted as saying, "Either he dies or I die." He wrote the message "Live or Die" on his Las Vegas hotel lampshade only days before the bout. A mistaken translation led to "kill or be killed" being reported in the media. Now, Mancini and Kim met in an arena outside Caesars Palace on November 13th. The night after Aaron Pryor defeated a fighter that bet Mancini in the previous fight, Alexis Arguello, so big weekend for boxing. They went toe for toe for a good portion of the 15-rounder, to the point where that Mancini briefly considered quitting. Kim tore open Mancini's left ear and puffed up his left eye, and Mancini's left hand swelled to twice its normal size. After the fight, Mancini's left eye would be completely closed. However, by the later rounds, Mancini began to dominate, landing many more punches than Kim. In the 11th, he buckled Kim's knees. In the beginning of the 13th round, Mancini charged Kim with a flurry of 39 punches, but had little effect. Sugar Ray Leonard, who was working as one of the commentators of the fight, said Kim came right back very strong. Leonard later declared the round to be closely contested. When the fighters came out for the 14th, Mancini charged forward and hit Kim with a right. Kim reeled back, Mancini missed with a left, and then Mancini hit Kim with another hard right hand. Kim went flying into the ropes, his head hitting the canvas. Kim managed to rise unsteadily to his feet, but referee Richard Green stopped the fight, and Mancini was declared the winner by TKO 19 seconds into the 14th round. Ralph Wiley of Sports Illustrated, covering the fight, would later recall Kim pulling himself up by the ropes as he was dying, one of the greatest physical feats I had ever witnessed. Now, minutes after the fight was over, Kim collapsed into a coma and was removed from Caesars Palace Arena on a stretcher and taken to the Desert Springs Hotel. At the hospital, he was found to have a subdermal hematoma consisting of 100 cubic centimeters of blood in his skull. Emergency brain surgery was performed at the hospital to try to save him, but Kim died 5 days after the bout, on November 18th. The neurosurgeon said it was caused by one punch. The week after, Sports Illustrated published a photo of the fight on its cover under the heading "Tragedy in the Ring." The profile of the incident was heightened by the fight having been televised live by CBS in the States. Now, Kim had never fought a 15-round bout before. In contrast, Mancini was much more experienced at the time. He had fought 15-round bouts 3 times and gone on to round 14 once before. Kim compiled a record of 17 wins with 2 losses and 1 draw. Again, 8 of Kim's wins were by knockout. Now, after Kim's death, there was a whole bunch of reflection within the media, the boxing community, worldwide. It was international news. Mancini went through a rough period of reflection as he blamed himself for Kim's death. After friends helped him by telling him it was just an accident, Mancini went on with his career, though still haunted by Kim's death. His promoter, Bob Aarons, said Mancini was never the same after Kim's death. 2 years later, Mancini lost his title to the great Livingston Bramble. Now, I think Mancini has looked back on his life much more calmer now. He's a very dynamic individual. But to take on a fighter that you didn't know the capacity to fight back, the WBA would have that. A lot of international fighters would come over, mostly from Europe and Sub-Asia. But we had a lot of Asiatic fighters that did well against, U.S. opponents. And I don't know if he hit his head that the blow caused the concussion, the pressure rip. But, that's of the air. Now, 4 weeks after the fatal fight, the Mike Weaver versus Michael Dokes fight for the heavyweight title at the same Caesars Palace venue ended with a TKO declared 36 seconds into the fight. Referee Joey Curtis admitted to stopping the fight early under orders of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which required referees to be aware of a fighter's health in light of the Mancini-Kim fight, and a rematch was ordered. Now, Kim's mother eventually flew from South Korea to Las Vegas to be with her son before the life support equipment was turned off. 3 months later, she committed suicide by drinking a bottle of pesticide. The bout's referee, Richard Green, also eventually committed suicide via a self-inflicted gunshot wound on July 1st, 1983. Kim left behind a fiancée, Lee Young-mi, despite rules against South Korean boxers having girlfriends. At the time of his death, Lee was pregnant with their son, Kim Chi-won, who was born in July 1983. Kim Chi-won became later a successful dentist. In 2011, Kim Chi-won and his mother had a meeting with Ray Mancini as part of a documentary on the life of Mancini called The Good Son. In popular culture, the San Francisco-based band Sun Kil Moon's first album, Goes to the Great Highway, has 3 tracks named after boxers, including a song about Duk Koo Kim, which references the Mancini fight. Sports Illustrated included a song on the list of greatest songs about sports. Now, eventually, the Nevada State Athletic Commission proposed a series of rule changes as a result, announcing before a December 10 match between Michael Dokes and Weaver that would in itself be disputed because of what officials were informed before the fight. The break between rounds was initially proposed to go from 60 seconds to 90, but it was later rescinded. The standing 8 count, which allows a knockdown to be called even if the boxer is not gone down, but on the verge of being knocked down, was imposed, and new rules regarding suspension of license were imposed, which was now 45 days after a knockout loss. Back in the day, there was no limit that I know of when you're knocked out that would happen. Now, the 15-round fights, you would think there was world heavyweight titles that were deciding this. No. Ali fought several 15-round scheduled fights, especially one against Bonavino. I think it was in a NABF championship or the lower belts. Canadian fights would go 15 rounds, international fights, EBU, British, Commonwealth. But The longer a fight goes on, you say most major boxing injuries used to occur between the 12th and the 15th round. Give an example about this. When Billy Conn fought Lewis the first time, he was literally almost killed in the ring because being a 175-pounder against a heavyweight, he didn't have enough energy to do in that round where he wanted to knock Lewis out. Now, eventually, the World Boxing Council, the WBC, which was not the fight sanctioning organization, announced during its annual convention of 82 that many rules concerning fighters' medical care before fights needed to be changed. One of the most significant was the WBC's reduction of title fights from 15 to 12. The WBA and the IBF followed the WBC in 87. When the WBO was formed in 88, it immediately began operating with 12-round world title fights. Now, in the years after Kim's death, new medical procedures were introduced to fighters' pre-fight checkups, such as electrocardiograms, brain tests, and lung tests. As one boxing leader put it, a fighter's checkups before fights used to consist of blood pressure and heartbeat checks before 1982. Not anymore. Now, they were talking about a total ban of pro boxing for years. Now, and the only reason why I think that it never went ahead because there was too much merchandising, and the Tyson era as well. Can you imagine if Mike Tyson would have been going 15 rounds against certain fighters? He would have killed them in the later rounds. But I think, in my personal opinion, and this is just me here because I'm involved with boxing as a journalist and a volunteer for years, 4 rounds should be maximum for amateur fighters. The maximum for world title fights, 12 rounds. All rest should be 10, because the wear and tear of the modern boxer, they're better condition, better shape. The glove situation, we don't want another one of Resto, but gloves are more efficient now. So, talking about our great fighters, pro record, Kim was the OPBF lightweight champion for most of 1982. He had defended it quite a few times, and was also a lightweight champ. But the early loss was against Young Sil Lee, which was a 4-rounder. But he fought mostly in South Korea, in Seoul, of course, which is a center of boxing. But he also fought in Manila, in the Philippines, in 1980. But he moved up quick in the ranks, and like a lot of people were very impressed with what he's fighting. I think he would have been a better junior welterweight, but again, the junior welterweights were full. But Boom Boom, there's a reason why he's called Boom Boom, because he was that type of fighter. Now, there's also a movie called Champion, which is a South Korean-made film of the life and career of Kim, played by Yoo Oh-seong. Now, just a little bit of background as well about Mancini. When he won that fight, he became, again, half and half on boxing. He was only 5'4" on his best days, 5'4.5", but because of the division was so stacked, he lost these last 4 fights, despite the fact that he put up some good battles. He had fought Bobby Chacon in a successful title defense a couple of years after Kim's fight, but lost twice to Bramble, Hector Camacho, and Greg Huggin. And WBA champion, tough loss against Arguello, 14-round knockout in 1981. But Mancini was very popular because his father was a very popular boxer as well. So very strong amongst the NABF, WBC, Ring Magazine rankings, WBO. He fought Camacho when Camacho was still in his prime in 1989. He had, again, moved up quite a few pounds. But I think the best thing I can say about Mancini, he went in every fight he did with intentions to have victory. Now, what's kind of weird here, ladies and gentlemen, he fought your traditional second-level contenders before becoming a major level star. And I always bring this up. He fought Johnny Summerhays and Al Ford in the early 1980s. Summer Hayes, very talented fighter, won a 10-round decision. Al Ford, around forever, would always give a fighter a good go. But for me, what really stood out was the victories against Arturo Frias and Ernesto Ospina. Ernesto Ospina, tremendous fighter, and winning the title from Frias in that late round knockout in 1982 at Aladdin probably is one of the most interesting fights you've never seen. So again, Kim and Boom Boom will forever be linked, but it's good to say this. 40 years ago, boxing was not, say, at its lowest level, but it needed to be protected. And it pretty well died in that ring. And it took almost years to come back. But when Mike Tyson rebirthed the heavyweights, people were mostly bored with Larry Holmes winning all the time. And until Michael Spinks came along, Tyson, the myriad of the multiple belt contenders, it drew some interest. And then you had obviously Razor Ruddock, Lennox Lewis, the Klitschko's later on. But again, one of the greatest eras for boxing for the lightweights, the junior welterweights, the welterweights, people were fighting with mean intentions. Anybody in the top 20 could be world champion back then in all three divisions, and I'm not joking. You look at who Alexa Arguello took on. You look at people that Bobby Chacon was a strong fighter as well. He took on everybody, Johnny Torres. Some of the fighters that Boom Boom had fought. But it's all linked to chasing Alexis Arguello and Arguello chasing the other fighters. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's our latest boxing podcast. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. And I watched that fight live, and I still don't understand. Like the SI writer said, how he even got up. It was like a ghost had lifted up. He was technically dead. That's what the doctor said. He was technically dead when he got up. Anyway, heart of a lion, as we say. Thanks for listening. Bye.